The third episode of Marvel's What If series has dropped on Disney Plus, and I know, and you know, you're not really here to watch this, are you? Check the comments below for a link to our Spider-Man No Way Home trailer review. That's what you're really here for. Again, I'll wait. See you on the other side of the credits. Okay, now that you got that out of your system, let's talk What If. This episode, while admittedly to me not nearly as good as the Star-Lord T'Challa episode, still came packing some punches. It brought the weird, it brought the funny. It was a little more out there, and I really loved a lot of things that they're still doing with this series. And we're going to talk about a few of those things before we really get into the story and the plot and those kind of things. So a couple of things I really liked about this episode was the variations in storytelling. You know, they've done different perspectives and those kind of things. But in this one, they didn't actually give you the what if right up front. I know the episode is titled What If the Avengers Never Assembled type thing, you know, if the world's mightiest heroes never came together. But that's not really the what if, and we're going to explore that here in a second. So that they varied that, and then it was more of a mystery as to who was behind all this and what was really going on, which really changed the what if moment when it was revealed. The cameos that are popping up with different voice actors, Michael Douglas being in this episode, for instance, was really awesome and not something that they even put in the credits, but when he popped up, it was really great. I think you're going to find for a lot of these actors to be able to lend their voices to different variations of the characters is going to be really appealing. We're going to see a lot more of that. After that, just visually, I like seeing the Watcher in the background of more scenes in this episode. You know, as there's faraway shots of cars driving across bridges or driving through the desert, you got to see the Watcher in the background as a reminder that he's there, that he's guiding us through these experiences. So I really liked that, and just the chances that they're taking with this, although the plot and the overall idea of the show invites changes. And I think, at least for Marvel and what they're doing, it's a really good opportunity and a really good thing on their part to explore some of these things. And comic books really give you the opportunity to do that, so it's not really that surprising. But even if you're not a fan of animated stuff, or you're not a fan of comic books, it's still a fun show, and it's an interesting change and a shift from what you've been seeing up until this point with the MCU. So even if you don't know anything about what's going on before, you get some different storytelling moments. Now, for the episode itself, I'm going to go ahead and give you what I think is the actual what if, and then we'll work towards it. Now, this whole episode is centered around what has commonly been known in the MCU as Fury's Big Week. And so that is the storytelling arc that happens between Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, and Thor. So you've got those three things that kind of happen all in the same week. Nick Fury shows up in each one of those movies, or, you know, in The Incredible Hulk, for instance, Tony Stark shows up in the post-credits scene and talks to General Ross, but it's insinuated that he was brought there after his encounter with Nick Fury in Iron Man 2. And so then when you see Thor, there is Coulson and some other things where Fury shows up, and he's part of that as well. And so you've got a lot of behind the scenes stuff in this episode that you didn't get in the MCU movies. Now, as far as the what if is concerned, it takes that backdrop, and the what if is not Fury being able to assemble the Avengers. The what if, the one thing that the Watcher would say changed the whole thing, I think, and I'm open for discussion in the comments, so please let me know. If you have a better theory, I'll shout you out for sure. The what if, I think, is what if Hank Pym never left S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, if you watch the beginning of the Ant-Man movie, you see this throwback to the Triskelion in 1980, and a younger version of Hank Pym comes in where Peggy Carter is part of S.H.I.E.L.D., and there's still some, what we find out later are Hydra agents and other people that have tried to replicate Hank's serum. Now, whether that was the catalyst, and maybe the what if Hydra never, stole Hank's serum, or what if maybe there's some other stuff further back. But that one instance right there, if Hank never left S.H.I.E.L.D., that means that even if his wife died, even if Janet died or went into the quantum realm, that Hope would not have been ostracized from the family. Particularly, Hank may not have developed his stuff outside of S.H.I.E.L.D., which created the Yellow Jacket program outside of S.H.I.E.L.D. But if he didn't leave S.H.I.E.L.D. in that moment, maybe Hope followed in his footsteps. She started working at S.H.I.E.L.D. She went on some mission, got killed, as we found out with some dialogue later in this episode. Hope doesn't get killed, or Hope does get killed by S.H.I.E.L.D., and then it causes Hank to spiral. Now, we'll get into some Easter eggs later on, but that moment right there is something from a different comic story where Hank does, in fact, go a little crazy. But seeing that version of Hank, who feels like S.H.I.E.L.D. was the cause for him losing his wife, the cause of him losing his daughter, pushed him over the edge. So when he hears that Nick Fury is putting together a group of people, heroes that are going to help protect the world, he decides to take matters into his own hands, and he starts going around and taking them out one by one. And so this version of Hank Pym that either was always with S.H.I.E.L.D. or was ostracized by S.H.I.E.L.D. or ended up, founding some version of the Avengers and then left, whatever that was, it all really revolves around Hank's story rather than the secondary what if, which is if Hank hadn't left S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers would have been created. So if Hank stayed with S.H.I.E.L.D., is this what would have happened to Hank's family, and as a result pushed him to go after the Avengers, or to break up Fury's plans, which in turn caused the Avengers not to be assembled, which means that Loki ends up being able to take over the Earth in a way that he didn't have to do with the Battle of New York. So there's all kinds of things there, but I think it starts way back with Hank's story, but they couldn't give you that at the beginning because you miss out on the mystery of the episode, which I think is a great nod and a hats off to Marvel for their storytelling there and being able to involve the audience in that a little bit and say, okay, well, what about this and what about that? And just really involving us as viewers in the process. So that was really, really cool. Several things in the episode which I thought were really cool. Getting to see, and I don't count these as Easter eggs, but we'll talk through them. Getting to see scenes from Iron Man 2 with Tony eating donuts in the big donut. Getting to see conversations before that encounter with Natasha and Nick Fury was really cool. And then some more behind the scenes stuff. The little cameo with Jeremy Renner in this episode. A little more with Coulson. And what Fury's doing whenever Coulson gets on the phone and says, hey, I found it. Getting some of those behind the scenes things, just that little flavor kind of adds to Marvel acknowledging some things that were going on in the universe. So I really liked that. You got the scenes from Thor, you got the scenes from Iron Man. You got a very different scene in the form of a Mark Ruffalo version of Bruce Banner interacting with Betty Ross at Culver University. And then you get some scenes that from The Incredible Hulk that would have been just Banner turning into the Hulk and bursting out to fight all of General Ross's forces, but it's actually him and Natasha trying to escape together. And then this one little moment where the way that Hank ends up killing the Hulk was very interesting as well, and we'll talk about that in an Easter egg here in a second too. A lot of really awesome things there that I thought were really cool, and the episode was fun to watch. Again, it giving you these different stories and giving the opportunity to see these background moments is a lot of fun. And then thinking through during the episode, well, if that didn't happen, what about this, and what about this? And you can really see that the writers have thought it through, and that it really is connected to the Marvel Universe. Now, what they're going to do, there's more of a meta thing out here, kind of the dream outside the dream, if we're going to use an Inception metaphor, to what's going on with the Watcher and the multiverse out here that we're getting a sneak peek of. You know, the fans are getting this education in the multiverse and this walkthrough of here's what it means to have a multiverse. But then you've got this guy like the Watcher that couldn't have possibly popped up just as Loki and Sylvie and Kang are destroying the sacred timeline. And so there's some other things going on there. I think it's definitely worthy of a video, and it's kind of percolating up here right now. And probably here in a couple of weeks we'll have another We Need to Talk About episode, and we'll talk about the multiverse and throw some theories and some predictions out there. So, but there's that meta Inception type thing out here of why is the Watcher there, and what's the Watcher doing, and what does that mean for the multiverse? Has it always been there, or is it just a brand new thing, or are we just getting an education on something that was always around and we just haven't been a part of it yet? So all kinds of really cool things that you can think about and watch these episodes, and it makes them rewatchable, especially to revisit moments in the MCU, and then to learn new things, if just as a fun show, if you've not watched the first 22 movies of the MCU. So getting to Easter eggs, there were, I don't really count the scenes from the old movies, although those are really fun to watch, but Easter egg wise, there was one really fun one that I really enjoyed, and that was when Natasha is trying to get access to the S.H.I.E.L.D. archives, and she calls Coulson and she needs Coulson's password, and his password is hashtag Steve, I heart Steve, 0704. Stuck out to me as a Independence Day baby. 0704 is in fact July 4th, and so just another drive home. It wasn't just random numbers. It is Independence Day, which is also Captain America's birthday in the comics. Little side note, it's not actually Steve Rogers' birthday, but the mythology surrounding Captain America puts his birthday on Independence Day. So you take that for what you will. I just thought that was an interesting little nod and another indication and little barb at just how much Coulson is wrapped up in Steve Rogers. It was really cool, especially given the things that you kind of remember from the Avengers movie about how much Coulson loved Steve Rogers and how Fury uses that to push the Avengers to come together when they're needed. The other Easter egg, and you'll have to go look up the comic references yourself, but the whole storyline in the comics of Hank Pym kind of going crazy and becoming this bad guy is a really big theme in some of the comics. They kind of make a nod to it in the Ant-Man movie, where they talk about needing to wear the helmet whenever you shrink down, because the whole thing about Pym particles in the suit and everything is it takes a toll on your mental capacity. And that's part of the reason that they insinuate that Darren Cross, who is Yellow Jacket, kind of went crazy. Is that he really wasn't a bad guy, but that the multiple times of him shrinking down and doing all those things really affected him. And in the comics, Hank, who is an original founding member of the Avengers, has that moment where he has a mental breakdown, dementia, so to speak, and multiple personalities, because of the number of times that he has used the suit and how it's taken a toll on his mental abilities. But it's way darker in the comics. There's domestic abuse, there's drinking, there's all kinds of things involved there. And I'm kind of glad they didn't go into that. That would have thrown it into a little darker place and kind of taken the story in a direction that it wasn't going. But if you know those things about the comics, you can kind of look at the way that they drew Michael Douglas or Hank Pym in that episode and kind of see that there's been some problems there, that this guy's gone down a really dark path. And that would be a fun dive for any of you guys that are interested in the comics, or Wikipedia it and look up some of those things. Is a really cool storyline to follow with regards to Ant-Man, Hank Pym, and there's a whole lot there with that story. A lot of people think because the MCU movie wasn't as big of a deal as something like Captain America or Iron Man, that likewise the comics would not be as big a deal. But actually in the comic world, Ant-Man and Hank Pym and that whole world is a lot bigger story and drives a lot more threads than what we see in the MCU. And I'm kind of excited that with Quantumania, with this third Ant-Man movie, they're actually going to use that movie to introduce and throw a lot more story in about the big bad coming up, which is Kang. And so, admittedly, when you are a billion-dollar company churning out billion-dollar movies, you can take one of your smaller movies and say, hey, if you want the whole story, you got to go watch this smaller movie rather than waiting for the giant tentpole blockbuster movies that are going to come out. And when your movies and your stories are good, they all become blockbusters. So you can put your story and tell your story however you want to, which is something I really enjoy about Marvel, is that they've gotten big enough that they can tell the story how they want to, and you're either in or you're not. So a couple of interesting Easter eggs there. I liked those. There weren't a ton of other Easter eggs there. You know, there's not a lot of thrown in, you know, numbers and different things that correspond to comic books and those kind of things. But there is a comic book run called What If, and it's got some of these stories and these ideas in it, and you can kind of branch off into your own different stories beyond that as well. So they're already going to do a season 2 of this show, so that's really interesting as well. And they're going to be able to kind of talk about some things that are happening in phases 2, 3, and beyond. So really excited about those things. Really excited about the next several episodes. Again, I think the variations in storytelling, the cameos, and the weirdness is just going to continue to ramp up as they take a little thing and blow it up into this bigger idea. So tell us what you guys think. Tell us what you guys saw. If you missed something in the episode, tell us what you think the actual what if of this episode was, since a lot of it was shrouded in mystery. Until then, share this video, like the video, and if you're not subscribed, please do that, and then share this video all across the multiverse. Until next time, we'll see you later.